What if the smartest anime killer in history went after the most dangerous criminal mastermind on television, Light Yagami, versus Walter White? Could the Death Note really end Heisenberg? Let's find out. Let's start with the very first and most important problem. Light Yagami doesn't hunt people at random. He hunts criminals who exist in the public eye, names that appear in police reports, news broadcasts, and large-scale investigations. And this is exactly why Heisenberg is such a difficult target at the beginning of Breaking Bad. In the early stages of the series, Heisenberg is practically invisible. He has no public crimes connected to his real identity, no real name linked to the drug world, and no recognizable face that appears in the media or law enforcement briefings. To the outside world, Heisenberg is nothing more than a rumor, a nickname whispered between dealers. From Light's perspective, this makes Heisenberg one of the hardest criminals he could ever go after, not because Heisenberg is smarter than everyone else, but because he barely exists on the public radar at all. However, that situation doesn't last forever. As the blue meth begins to spread across multiple states, the scale of the operation becomes impossible to ignore. The DEA increases its involvement, task forces are formed, arrests start happening, and entire news cycles begin focusing on a mysterious new drug empire. And that is the moment Heisenberg becomes visible to someone like Light Yagami. Light would not discover Walter White directly. He would first discover the problem, the sudden appearance of an organized, highly efficient meth operation that law enforcement clearly cannot control. Through news coverage, court cases, and leaked investigation details, the name Heisenberg would slowly rise to the surface as the symbol behind that operation. Realistically, Light only becomes aware of Heisenberg once the DEA officially begins treating him as a high-priority target. And that timing is extremely important. Because unlike most criminals Light kills in the Death Note world, Heisenberg would enter Light's awareness very late into his criminal career, when the damage is already massive and when law enforcement is already desperately trying to uncover who he really is. Now, this is where Light becomes truly terrifying. Because unlike most criminals Light hunts, Heisenberg operates inside a closed ecosystem. He constantly deals with distributors, dealers, and mules, all of whom form a tightly connected criminal network. Light's first logical move wouldn't be chasing Walter directly. It would be hunting the network itself, just like L once hunted Light. He would begin killing mid-level dealers and manufacturers, slowly forcing panic inside the operation. And panic creates mistakes. People start talking more, moving more, and breaking their usual routines. From Light's perspective, the smartest way to reach Heisenberg is to collapse the structure underneath him. And inside Walter's operation, there is one massive weakness. It's Jesse Pinkman. Jesse is highly emotional, which makes him unstable and, more importantly, extremely easy to manipulate. If Light identifies Jesse as a repeated contact point between multiple operations, Jesse immediately becomes the perfect surveillance target. And once Light narrows down Jesse's connections, Walter White becomes statistically unavoidable. But here's where Breaking Bad becomes very different from Death Note. Because Walter isn't a normal criminal. The Death Note has one unbreakable rule. You must picture the victim's face, and Walter White's face is not public. Unlike most criminals Light kills, there are no press conferences with Walter in handcuffs, no mugshots, no televised trials. Light would absolutely learn the name Walter White, especially once the DEA finally closes in. But here's the catch. Light would almost certainly learn the name at the same time the DEA does. And at that point, Walter is already in full collapse mode. He's on the run, slowly disappearing, and completely off the grid. And Light doesn't have magical surveillance powers. He still relies on cameras, databases, and human information leaks. This becomes a race between Light finding a visual identity for Walter and Walter vanishing completely. So, could Light actually pull it off? The short answer, yes, but not easily and definitely not cleanly. Light's biggest advantage is scale. He can manipulate the entire criminal ecosystem simply by killing selectively. He can force reactions. He can provoke chaos. And sooner or later, Walter's name would surface. But the real challenge is timing. If Light starts his hunt too late, if Walter disappears before Light can confirm his face, then Light loses. Because unlike most criminals who still move freely in public, Walter White has the resources and the connections to erase himself completely. However, if Light identifies Jesse early, collapses the distribution network quickly, and gains access to information at the level of the DEA, then yes, Walter White dies of a sudden heart attack in a world that never even realizes a supernatural notebook was responsible. Light Yagami thrives on visibility. Walter White survives through invisibility. This isn't about intelligence alone, it's about who controls information first. And in a world without L, without Near, and without any supernatural investigators, Walter White might be the most dangerous target Light Yagami has ever faced.